AI is just exploding, right? It's expanding at an incredible pace, and it's touching pretty much every part of our lives. But with all that power comes a huge challenge, making sure it's built and used responsibly. This isn't just a nice idea, it's an absolute global necessity. So today, we're going to dive into the emerging international rulebook that's shaping the future of AI. So that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? AI is powerful, but who's writing the rules? Well, it's not just one company or one country calling the shots. Instead, what we're seeing is a whole ecosystem of organizations working together to create a common language for safe and trustworthy AI. So let's break down the key players and see how all their rulebooks fit together. Okay, so at the heart of all this is a term you're going to hear a lot: AI governance. The best way to think about it is like the guardrails on a super fast highway. It's the whole system of laws, policies, and frameworks that are designed to manage big risks, things like bias and privacy violations, so that we can innovate safely and, most importantly, build trust. All right, to really wrap our heads around this rulebook, we've got to understand two core ideas. First up, you have principles. This is the why. These are the high-level ethical values that guide responsible AI. But, principles on their own are just ideas on paper. That's where frameworks come in. They are the how, the practical step-by-step guides that turn those values into real-world action. So let's start at the very beginning with the ethical foundation. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, was one of the first groups to establish a set of global principles that dozens of countries have now officially adopted. This is pretty much our ethical starting point. So what the OECD does is give organizations a way to classify any AI system by looking at it through 5 different lenses. It forces you to ask the big questions like, what's the impact on people and the planet? What economic environment is it operating in? What kind of data is it using? What's the model's architecture? And finally, what exactly is it doing? This helps you map out the entire context and see potential risks right from the get-go. And all of this is guided by 5 core principles. The OECD is very clear. AI has to promote well-being, it must uphold human rights and democratic values, it's got to be transparent and explainable, it needs to be robust and secure, and, this is a big one, there has to be clear accountability. These are the fundamental values, the why, that form the bedrock of responsible AI. Okay, so if the OECD laid down that ethical foundation, the next question is obvious. How do you actually build on it? And that brings us to the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. Think of them as providing the architectural blueprint for managing AI risk in practice. This is where the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, or RMS, comes in. Now, it's a voluntary guide, but it's incredibly influential around the world. Its entire goal is to make trustworthiness something you can actually do, to move beyond just talking about principles and actively bake them into every single stage of an AI system's life, from the first sketch to the final rollout. And what I think is really powerful about the NIST framework is how it defines trustworthy AI. It's not some vague, fuzzy concept. They break it down into 7 concrete characteristics. Is the system valid and reliable? Is it safe? Secure? Is it fair? Can you explain it? This gives organizations a really clear, actionable checklist to measure their own systems against. At the very heart of the NIST framework is what they call the core. It's built around 4 simple but really powerful functions. And what's crucial here is that this isn't a one-time checklist. It's designed to be a continuous loop, helping organizations build a genuine culture of risk management. So, how does it work? Well, the process itself is pretty straightforward. First, you govern. You set up the teams and the culture. Then, you map. You identify potential risks. For example, let's say you're building an AI for hiring. A risk you'd map is that your training data might be biased, right? Leading to unfair results. Next, you measure that risk by actually testing the model to see if it's producing biased outcomes. And finally, you manage it, maybe by retraining the model on more balanced data. Govern, map, measure, manage. It's a practical cycle you can run over and over. All right, so we've got our ethical principles and the management blueprint, but what about the actual tools you'd use to build this thing and, kick the tires to make sure it's safe? This is where NIST and another key player, ISO, give us a practical toolkit. So one of NIST's most important tools for this is the ARIA program. I mean, with the explosion of large language models, we need really specialized ways to evaluate them, right? ARIA is designed to do exactly that, to develop the advanced metrics and methods we need to rigorously test the safety and capabilities of the models that power all the generative AI we see today. And a huge part of the AI ARIA program is something called red teaming. You can basically think of it as a sophisticated stress test. You bring in experts to act like bad guys, and they deliberately try to break the AI system, to trick it, find its biases, and expose any hidden weak spots. The whole point is to find the cracks in the system before they can cause any real-world harm. All right, for the final piece of our puzzle, let's talk about the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO. If NIST gives us the blueprint for our structure, you can think of ISO as providing the official, certifiable building codes that make sure everything is built to a consistent, globally recognized standard. And there are two ISO standards that are really important for us. First, you've got 22989. Honestly, the easiest way to think about this one is as the official dictionary for AI. It just makes sure that everyone, engineers, regulators, auditors, is all speaking the same language. Then there's 42001. And this is the big one. It's a complete management system standard that lays out the formal requirements for how an organization has to govern its AI. And one of the best things about ISO 42001 is just how flexible it is. It's designed to work for any organization, no matter the size, to plug right into existing business processes, and to cover the entire AI lifecycle. Getting this certification is a really powerful signal to the world that your organization has a mature, robust AI governance system. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. So how does all of this whole shebang fit together? Well, the most important thing to get is that these frameworks aren't competing with each other. They're actually designed to be complementary layers in a single, unified approach to governing AI. So let's put it all together in one place. The OECD gives us the why, that's our ethical foundation. The NIST AI RMF gives us the how, that's the blueprint for managing risk. And ISO gives us the what, the formal certifiable building codes for quality and consistency. You see, together they form this really comprehensive toolkit for building trustworthy AI. But here's the thing. No framework, no standard, no tool is going to work on its own in a vacuum. At the end of the day, effective governance comes down to people. It absolutely demands constant communication and collaboration between everyone involved, developers, users, regulators, to build the trust and accountability that are so essential.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most critical question. The rulebooks we've talked about are a huge step forward, no doubt, but AI isn't standing still. So the ultimate test is going to be whether our human-made standards can actually evolve as fast as the technology they're supposed to guide.